Hello, hello, hello. Yes, good evening. It is Auntie Audrey here, and I continue with the reading of the Bible story. Story 7 today of volume 2. We are already on story 7. I'm enjoying these stories. And I'm being reminded because sometimes, we tend to forget, and I had forgotten some of these stories. And I'm being reminded as I read them to you. So I hope you are enjoying them as much as I am enjoying reading them to you. We are on story 7 of volume 2. It says, sold into slavery. I think that's another sad story, isn't it? Sold into slavery. And you can find it in Genesis chapter 33, chapter 35, and chapter 37. Shall we pray? Good evening, dear Jesus. This day is for you. I ask you to bless all I think, say, and do. Amen. Moving slowly along, Jacob and his caravan came at last to a place called Shechem. Everybody was tired of traveling, and the place looked rather nice, so he decided to settle there. He bought a piece of land just outside the city for 100 pieces of silver and set up camp. But it didn't work out well. Some of his children got into serious trouble with the children of the city, and God told Jacob to move to Bethel. Settle there, the Lord said to him, and build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau. They all needed to remember God. Things had been slipping. Some of the Jacob's servants had been getting interested in the idols that the people of the land worshipped. The girls were dressing themselves up with ornaments, just like the heathen. They all needed to get back to Bethel, to the house of God and the gate of heaven. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, get rid of the foreign gods you have with you, and purify yourselves and change your clothes. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had and the rings in their ears. When Jacob later moved from Bethel, something very sad happened. Rachel died just as she was having a second baby. Jacob was heartbroken, for he loved Rachel best of all. As she was dying, Rachel named her baby Benoni, meaning son of my sorrow. Jacob changed it to Benjamin, meaning son of the right hand, which showed how much he thought of him. From now on, Rachel's two boys, Joseph and Benjamin, became especially precious to their sorrowing father. Jacob now had 12 sons, and you really should know all their names: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Besides all these boys, there were Dinah and possibly other daughters whose names we do not know. Altogether, it was a very large family. No wonder Jacob needed such huge flocks and herds to feed them all. All the boys helped with the farm chores, spending much of their time taking care of the sheep and looking after all their father's animals. They were shepherds, cowboys, and farmers all in one. Imagine they were quite a husky group of boys. But somehow Joseph didn't fit in with his older brothers. They looked at him as little brother and a bit of a nuisance. Once he told his father some of the bad things they were saying and doing, and they found out about it. After that, they didn't like to have him around at all. They didn't want him telling on them again. Because Joseph was Rachel's son, Jacob favored him more than the others, which helped make things worse. One day, Jacob made a beautiful robe for Joseph. It was richly ornamented and very colorful. It made him stand out from the rest of his brothers. This made the older brothers more jealous of him than ever. They said their father had never given them robes as good as that. They began to suspect that Jacob might be planning to give the birthright to Joseph instead of to Reuben. When Joseph was 17 years old, he told his brothers about a dream he had had. He said they were all tying sheaves of grain in a field, when suddenly all their sheaves bowed down to his sheaf. You can imagine how his brothers liked that. Then he told them of another dream, how the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. They liked that dream even less. Joseph would have been wiser to have kept these dreams to himself or to have shared them only with his father. But the fact that he told them to his brothers may show how innocent he really was. Perhaps he hoped they would tell him what the dream meant. As it was, he succeeded in making the older boys very angry. They had no intention of bowing down to their little brother. They became so angry with him that they even talked about killing him. One day his brothers saw him walking toward them across the fields. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." Just then, Reuben walked up and overheard what the others were suggesting. Although he disliked Joseph as much as the rest, he wasn't willing to go so far as to kill him. Since he was the oldest, he knew his father would hold him responsible. Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the desert, but don't lay a hand on him." He planned to pull Joseph out later and send him back home. The others agreed and waited for their brother to arrive. Joseph had walked a long way, about 50 miles, 80 kilometers, looking for his brothers, and was feeling very happy that he had found them at last. He was so glad to see them again that he almost forgot how tired and hungry he was. Imagine then his disappointment when he saw the hateful looks on their faces. This was not the welcome he had expected. Suddenly, to his horror, some of them seized him, tore off his robe, carried him to a deep pit, and threw him in. Joseph begged them to have mercy on him, but they wouldn't listen. They just left him alone at the bottom of the pit, hungry, cold, and heartbroken. He called and called, but no one came. For all he knew, they had left him to die of thirst and starvation. Meanwhile, Reuben had gone back to his work. The others, left to themselves, started to talk about what to do with Joseph. They were in trouble. Since they had agreed not to kill the boy, they couldn't leave him in the pit to die. But if they let him go, he would run home and tell his father how cruel they had been to him. Just then, they saw a caravan approaching and discovered that it was a group of Ishmaelites from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah had a bright idea. "Come," he said, "let's sell him to the Ishmaelites." The very thing the brothers liked the idea, because they would not only get rid of Joseph, but would also be making some money as well. So they stopped the caravan and the bargaining began. Finally, Joseph was lifted out of the pit. In spite of his tears and pleading, his own brothers sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. Poor Joseph, the pride and joy of his father's heart, became a slave in a caravan on its way to Egypt. How cruel family members can be sometimes. I hope you never have any thoughts like this about your little brother or sister. Looking back, we can see what a wicked, foolish thing those brothers did. Selling Joseph didn't help them at all. The 20 pieces of silver didn't go far among 10 brothers. Just 2 pieces each, which didn't take long to spend. And they never really got rid of Joseph. For years after he was gone, they couldn't get him out of their minds. They worried about what they had done and what might happen to them if they were ever found out. Why, possibly they might even meet Joseph again someday. And those dreams of his, what did they mean? Could it be that they had made a dreadful mistake? They certainly had. Imagine your brother selling you to strangers. Anyway, it is a beautiful story. I love the story of Joseph and of Jacob. I really love